Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now. Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys, coming to you the day after an 0-3 start for our favorite professional football team. Game that was pretty entertaining. It was close. It was intense. It was back and forth. It was sloppy. Didn't execute all that well, and Vikings come up short yet again. Guys, getting kind of sick of doing these shows where we talk about a loss. They're not as much fun. We all predicted a win. It didn't happen. And here we sit at 0-3. So turnover battle again. We lost that. You lose that, you lose the game. It seems to be an overly simple way to look at it. But Goose, why don't you start us off on this one here tonight? Takeaways, thoughts on where we're at, just overall just recap of the game. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it was a pretty big gut punch. I feel like there's lots of parts that you watch and it seems like we're a more competitive team than even points last year. We're seeing the exact opposite. We're not catching the breaks. We don't have some of the luck on our side, and we're losing the one-score games. I think I'm officially at. I'm not quite at like the statistics of an 0-3 team being practically nothing to making the playoffs, mainly due to our division and the NFC just not looking great as a whole, and that we've played three decent teams pretty competitively with a lot of self-inflicted wounds. But I have hit a point of tempering expectations, this being potentially a tough season, and you just hope they start to figure it out. I think one of my biggest concerns going forward is most of the time turnovers happen when players are trying to do too much. It's easy to say, like, Alexander Madison just run up the middle with both arms covering the ball, but you're probably not going to break any decent gains. If Kirk's checking the ball down, you're probably not making any big gains there. But I think the more we lose, the more players are going to press and try to be a superhero, and could be a tough problem to fix. So the season could snowball. I also think that there's a slight chance that we turn it around and figure it out and put together a playoff run. But my expectations are tempered, maybe mostly for my heart to make it through this season. But yeah, this is probably the least I've looked forward to recording an episode since we started. So it's tough to talk about week after week.
It is. It's therapeutic, I guess, Goose. You got to get through it. You have a bad day from time to time and move on. So
yeah,
Tanner, 0-3, sloppy football. What are you taking a deep dive here? Staying positive, or time to jump ship and start looking at the draft already? 3 games into what's now a 17-game season rather than 16. So what are your thoughts there, Mr. Weber?
Yeah, I think we're on the twilight zone because Goose is usually the optimist here and I'm the pessimist. But I feel like I'm the optimist and maybe you guys are the pessimist after 3 games. Obviously, being 0-3 is not ideal. But I feel like looking at our schedule, things only get better. Obviously, Kansas City and San Francisco are going to be tough, but they are home games. And outside of those 2 games, I don't really feel like I look at our schedule and think to myself that any of those games are completely unwinnable. And we haven't even played a divisional game yet. So they can very much turn things around. However, I think if we lose to Carolina next Sunday, I'll probably think differently. I think that
that's when you pull the plug. When you've lost Tanner this year, then it's over.
Carolina is just not a good team. They're in complete rebuild mode right now. They're very young, inexperienced. There's no reason that we shouldn't go in and win by 2 scores, I think, next week. But this team
did I see this infographic or stat right? Is Kirk leading the league in yardage? JJ's leading the lead in yardage for receiver, and Daniil's like second in sacks.
Yeah.
That's incredible that that is like the most Viking thing to do, right?
It's also shows like the inverse of like last year, like when people still wanted to call out Kirk's stats and we were winning games. Now this year he's got the stats, but we're losing, and people are coming after him in both scenarios. When he's got the stats, it's like wins is the most important stats. And then last year he wins 13 games, and it's like, oh, he's game manager. He turned the ball over too many times. He did XYZ. It seems like he can't win.
Do you guys do this too? Like you go through the season after a loss, and then Monday it's like, oh, they're terrible. And then you kind of build yourself up. And that's why we always predict wins before they're happening. And we have no reason to predict a win going forward. In fact, I'm going on the record right now and saying they're going to lose at Carolina, just so I could be wrong, maybe more than anything. But it feels like the optimism builds throughout the week. And even like the game yesterday, they were buried. They were down, what was it, 21-10? Trying to talk Griffin into just, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Like not really believing it. But then they did score and they came back and take the lead. And then it's, I don't know. It's just like, it's like their brand. They're like on brand right now.
Yeah.
Creative ways to lose games that you should win. That's kind of what it feels like. Tanner, I can't believe you're the optimistic one of the group. I'm usually right there with Goose.
I feel like he didn't say anything though more optimistic than I did. Right now I just said my guard's up. My guard is up. I'm tempering my expectations a little bit, but I think the season's far from over. And I think it's crazy that at 0-2 there was trade Kirk and tank for Caleb Williams and all of that talk in a division that's still very winnable. If the Packers don't pull off a crazy comeback against a bad Saints team, I mean we're right there. So I think there's
I still just think that we're the best and most talented team in this division.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
I would like to see Marcus Davenport see the field once. Obviously,
nice.
It sucks that we paid him $13 million and he hasn't played yet. But I think he's going to make a big difference for the defense, getting some pressure on the other side and Daniil not having to do everything by himself.
Yeah.
I would like to see Cam Akers in this offense to take some heat off of Madison. I don't think Madison is a receiving back by any means, and I think he's kind of been forced into that role, and that's not something that he is. And I just think that I would like to see Dalton Reisner potentially even get some snaps, but although if nobody's seen this yet, I know I shared it earlier with you guys today, Ed Ingram was our highest graded offensive lineman this last week. PFF feels broken after seeing that.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll see Reisner in Carolina, but I would like to see him in pass protection as well, because I felt like Kirk was getting knocked on his butt constantly again yesterday, and he's still playing well. So
did Ingram have Sorry, Tanner. Did Ingram have a decent grade, or was it just the best of the worst?
No, he had 81.5, which is an above average grade.
Yeah.
I think he had a good game, like from PFF terms, but I feel like even rewatching the game yesterday, I told Brent at lunch today that I felt like every time Cousins was getting hit, it was Ingram's guy. Like you got no names like Sebastian Joseph Day and Nick Williams. Like these guys are no names and they're getting pressure on Kirk. It's just Garrett Bradbury hasn't played either this year. Played a couple series in the first game and he got hurt. So I feel like we're missing a lot of key pieces.
Let's go back to the last. Tanner, you made a good point earlier today when we were talking about all the little things. It's easy to point to the last play of the game, but there's so many opportunities throughout that game to just go win it, whether it's on offense or defense or really any of those things that led up to that point. It's easy to talk about that last play or that last series. In your mind, Tanner, how should that have played out? I mean, ideally, the interception happens. It doesn't bounce around and go for a touchdown for the Chargers. Maybe the game plays out way differently than at that point. The last play, is that in your mind, like, are you frustrated with Kirk, or is it just one of those things that happened? Should Hockenson have caught it? Should O'Connell have been? Walk me through that from your perspective.
On the last play?
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to see us.
35 seconds. They picked up the first down, I think, with 37 on the clock.
I mean, there's multiple people that you could blame on that. The crowd is getting
flack.
It
was not loud. It was not loud.
Brent was there, so he knows better, but I know the crowd is getting flack for being too loud,
That's
on a fourth down
lame
call,
excuse.
Which is crap. Kevin O'Connell said that they were having headset issues and Kirk couldn't hear him. But at the same time, I feel like as a veteran quarterback, Kirk should know better to get up there and just spike the ball and give yourself some time to sift through a couple plays and figure out the best one. You might even have a chance to get off 2 plays before then. But I also want to put blame on TJ Hawkinson. Like, we paid you. You wanted to sit out all camp.
Reset
and now
the
you're
market.
You're the
at
top
tight end.
paid tight end in the league. Catch the damn ball. Like, Kirk
It's
put
right
it
off
on
his
the
hand,
money.
right?
He put it in the only spot TJ Hawkinson could have caught it, and he didn't catch it. So there's multiple people you blame on that last drive, but that last play doesn't even go into the deciding factor of the game. Like, a Caleb Evans dropped that interception. Kirk Cousins overthrew KJ Osborne on 1st and 10. I think like at the 25-yard line on our last drive, or second to last drive, maybe it was. Like, we had a chance to go up. We had a chance to go up there. So
it's crazy.
There's just a lot that happened in the fourth quarter.
It's crazy though, with football in particular being just such a weird sport with limited possessions and bounces that go either way. Hawkinson makes that catch. You're talking about how he is worth every penny potentially, even though he fumbled, but that's overlooked, right? You're talking about how Cousins had an amazing game, 4 touchdowns, ball was on the money. And it is like complete polar opposites from that one tip of the ball. And I know there's other ways and it doesn't come down to that, but really, like, these games are like that. And you could probably point to the first 2 where there's a play or 2 as well. So to me, it's just sloppiness, and sometimes things don't go your way, but when you don't make the plays up to that point, you put yourself in that situation where it maybe never had to come down to that. So Goose, your thoughts on that final possession?
So I think one of the interesting dynamics of that play is you watch the quarterback series on Netflix. You see when Kirk tried to quick sneak it on his own call, and KOC gets on him pretty good for trying to do that. So now you fast forward a season, Kirk's got that in the back of his mind, and KOC in his presser said, "We prefer to run up, call another play, and not allow a substitution." So let's say Kirk runs the line. He's trying to hear the play call. You don't hear it the first time. Now you're maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds off the clock. No one's lined up. So that's part of, for him to listen to the play and tell everyone, which everyone should know in the NFL, get on the line of scrimmage. But they need to hear the play call. So I think it still kind of goes down to KOC. If he wants to try to call play there, it's hard for Kirk to say, nope, we're spiking it, everyone on the ball, as KOC's in his ear calling a play. I get he's a veteran quarterback. He's 35-1. He got his butt chewed the last time he tried to take the reins. And then this time around, KOC's obviously trying to call a play in. And at that point, when you could just make the decision of like, this isn't going well, you've already lost 12 seconds off the clock, and I guess you try to run it. So it's an interesting one because I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and most of the time it's hard to tell who's to blame. I think this one for me is pretty clear that if KOC is trying to call play call, it's got to go better than that. And I don't know if that's hand signals or what you need to do. I also think this kind of points to there's a lot of situational football. I appreciate being healthy, but this to me now is like, hey, none of your starters played in the preseason. We're messing up 2-minute drives. We're messing up a lot of situational football that you can nail down with some of this stuff. Also hanging onto the ball. I feel like when your first live rep isn't until week 1, you have more fumbles, you have more turnovers, you have more sloppy things. And then when we look at the different plays, because it's easy to look at the last one, to me, for our defense to come out against a high-powered offense like the Chargers, hold them to 3 and out on the first drive of the game, and then the offense is moving down the field, and TJ lets a smaller safety just pry the ball out of his hands. When turnovers was such an emphasis, I mean, you've got fans with signs all over the crowd saying, just hang on to the ball, please. And then your first drive of the game, you get it ripped out, it was just like, there's no way that this is happening again.
I know, it's crazy.
And they overcame it, so it's hard to go back and look at that, but it's another thing that you then had to overcome, and your defense is back on the field now. And it just seems like all 3 games this year, our defense has looked decent at the start, and then we just implode. And it seems like they're exhausted with our offense not coming through.
So I didn't have I didn't really even feel like rewatching the last part of the game when I got home last night, but you can always tell like I think it was Mark Sanchez. Was he the commentator?
Yeah.
Was he just hammering on spiking the ball, clocking it? I mean, the only reason I bring that up, so the ball falls incomplete. It's probably 7 seconds left, and you probably have 2 plays left, right? You kill it, you obviously have 3 cracks at the end zone.
Yeah.
They threw it to Hawkinson. Let's say it went off his hand and fell to the ground. Second down, you've got 7 seconds. You're probably going to run 2 plays there as well. So it's like, yeah, it bounced the wrong way and it was intercepted. Maybe the play call would have been different. I don't know if Kirk would have made a different throw, maybe not in traffic. Who knows? But it seemed like it was, I don't know if you're looking for one person to blame necessarily or what it is, but it's almost like because it bounced around and it didn't work out, now we're going to look back and say, well, you didn't clock it, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And yeah, they could have saved some time, but if he clocks it and there's 21 seconds left, you still are going to run 3 plays. Maybe it plays out differently. I guess we'll never know, obviously, but it's just, yeah, one of those things. I think, Tanner, you said this earlier, they could beat pretty much any team, and you maybe left the Niners and Chiefs where you're not real optimistic, but it feels like they could actually beat the Chiefs, and it wouldn't surprise us necessarily because they're capable of putting up a lot of points and playing well. And they could probably lose to the Bears and in Soldier Field, and we wouldn't be shocked on that either. Just the way the season's going and things are bouncing and not executing, I guess. So is that a fair way to summarize it? And does that make it a bad team or just totally unpredictable? Tanner, what do you think on that?
No, this is a good team that's not executing. It's just complete polar opposite of last season. I felt like we weren't that. I felt like we were the worst team, not the worst team, but we're usually not the better team on most of the days that we played, and we just somehow executed in the spots that we needed to the most. And this year, I feel like we're the better team for the majority of the game, and we're coughing up and not executing in the spots that we need to execute the most. Like it's just a complete polar opposite. Like we're living in the Twilight Zone.
Doesn't it feel like if this team could magically play last year's team, this team would move the ball up and down the field, turn it over. That team would have drives, not ever get started and stall out. And that team would make a big play at the end and just happen to win. And this team would screw up at the end. Something would go the wrong way. And maybe it just averages out, but it is weird how it's the same core group of guys. And actually, we feel like the defense is maybe coached a lot better or more aggressively. We could even hit on that a little bit. Do you like the amount of blitzing? It's polar opposite from Ed Donatel, but it was not getting home at all yesterday.
I like not Donatel. Flores' scheme here. I like a lot of the 3 safety sets that he's been running because I think Josh Metellus and Cam Bynum have both been actually probably outplaying Harrison Smith this year, which is super weird, but we are at that point of his career. I do feel like we're maybe blitzing more than we should be, but I also think that Flores is probably doing that because we don't have Davenport.
Yeah.
Like he knows that Wanham and Patrick Jones and whoever that other guy is on the other side isn't going to be getting home. And we also don't have any interior defensive linemen that can pressure the ball either. Like we don't have one guy that can do that. So you have to make up for it some way or another. And he knows that we have guys like Ivan Pace, who was graded really well in college, blitzing, and we got safeties that can get home as well. So making up that difference. The one thing I am kind of surprised about is Flores typically historically is a lot more well known for like man-to-man coverage. Like he's all about like manning your guy up and like may the best man win. And the Vikings are like leading the league in like zone coverage snaps through 3 weeks. So that's different.
The tough thing about zone is it seems like almost every big play against the Vikings defense this season, you've seen a corner or a defensive back like pointing at someone else. Like, oh, I thought you had him. And you just have to be really sound to play good zone and probably have played with each other for a long time to be able to read each other's minds. And it just doesn't seem like they have it this year. I don't know how much of it is his scheme or versus execution, but I noticed about midway through on Sunday, and I kind of want to rewatch just to look specifically for it. But there was probably 4 or 5 plays where I noticed whether it was Ivan Pace or linebacker safety that was bringing the pressure, that at the time of the snap, they were 5 yards off the line of scrimmage and they were maybe just passing the line of scrimmage when the ball was out and completed to Keenan Allen. And it was like, all right, like, and the hard thing to pick apart some of these things is a lot of times the linebacker maybe has the running back, and if the running back doesn't go out, then they typically rush. But it just feels so like a waste of a defender when you don't even get to the line of scrimmage when the ball's out. So it's I noticed that yesterday, and I just thought after I noticed it another 3 or 4 times, and I hope that's something that they can do something about. If you're going to send them, get them in, and if not, then maybe if your running back stays in, maybe you drop back 5 yards and try to get in a passing lane, because what we allowed to Keenan Allen yesterday is pretty brutal to watch.
If I would have told you guys these were some of the stats, okay, Kirk's going to throw for 367, 3 touchdowns. JJ's going to have 149 and get his first touchdown of the year. We're going to hold the Chargers to 30 yards rushing. We are going to, bold prediction by Mr. Weber, break 100 yards as a team, rushing 130. What do you think would you have signed up for that all day? 30 yards. 30 yards rushing.
My
That's
only thought
insane.
with 30 yards rushing is, do they not have to run because they're having so much success passing?
I know, but do you
And I
remember the
think
Eagles
that
game?
yeah, but that I also remember the Bucks game, and it just seems like it's pick your poison, where Belichick is known for, like, we're going to take your best thing away. It seems like the Vikings this year are like, we're going to allow you your best thing, but we're not going to stop that at all. And then we're going to take everything else away. Keenan Allen's had a lot of injuries over the past 3-4 years, but he's had a hot start to this game. And he, by far, without Eckler on the field, should have been the number one focus of, like, this guy's not going to beat us. So for that to happen is super frustrating.
All right. Well, we like to do this every week. None of our predictions were right. We all picked a win. That didn't happen. Tanner did say we'd have 100 rushing yards. Kudos to Tanner for getting that. Goose said we would not turn the ball over. He's wrong twice. And I picked a non-offensive touchdown. That did not happen. So I think we all said we'd be frustrated with turnovers and the way that Goose had said the way the game just didn't flow sometimes. And I think maybe there's some validity to that as well. But let's get into some rants and raves. So we maybe should start. Let's just pile on the negativity, get that flushed out of the old system. We're going to start with some rants. So, Goose, I'm going to let you start this one off. There's some easy ones there, some low-hanging fruit you can snatch, or you can dive deep and leave that for me. But you pick what you want to have here for the rants. What's your rant?
I'm gonna just beat home ball security. There's certain freak plays that happen where maybe you get airborne or you're going to the ground and you've got to protect yourself, and it doesn't feel like any of these fumbles have been that. I already hit on it earlier, but for TJ Hawkinson to allow a smaller safety to just pry the ball out of his hands when he's a big dude who wanted to reset the market and got paid, especially at the opening drive, when I feel like that's a big momentum builder for the crowd, for the defense, for kind of the whole team. And then Madison with another fumble, the one that didn't count, but it sure seemed like a fumble.
Hey,
and
they tried to challenge it. First, there's a first for everything.
Yeah,
I don't know what Staley was doing there, but
I didn't think you could challenge it, and then they granted the challenge. They granted it. They reviewed it.
You challenged the spot.
Oh,
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that is weird. God, that's another frustrating thing is their coach has made so many poor decisions in his career, and at the end of the game when he went for it, I don't think it was a terrible decision to go for it, even though they're in that spot of the field. But we hadn't stopped the pass all game long, and you try to run it up the middle. And I was like, if we don't make them pay for this, and sure enough, we didn't. So as much as I want to say KOC, I'm going to stick with the turnovers. It should have been an emphasis going into the game. It still looked ugly with TJ and then Madison getting bailed out.
Tanner, pick one rant. What do you got for us?
Well, if you're not going to pick O'Connell, then I will. I need to be careful with what I say, though, because I do think Kevin O'Connell seems like he is an excellent leader of men. But I don't necessarily feel so great through 20-ish games about his play calling abilities. And obviously I tried to keep my mouth shut for a majority of last year because we were winning games, and it doesn't make sense to talk crap about a coach when you have 13 wins. So I felt like I did notice it dating back to last year already. And granted, it's not as bad as I feel like most offensive play calling that we've had previously with guys like Norv Turner and John DeFilippo. So I just feel like it's not necessarily. I feel like it's crucial situations. I feel like I just wonder some stuff. The one thing that keeps sticking out to me, and I don't think it was necessarily a crucial part of the game, but I think the Vikings had like a 2nd and 3. At like midfield heading into Chargers territory in the second half. And I think we called back-to-back passing plays and we went 3 and out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just little stuff like that. Like, you need 3 yards. You got Madison, you're running the ball well. Why did you go away from it?
I think it was that drive where there was like 7-yard carries we were running the ball really well.
And it's just stupid little stuff like that. And I just feel like there are some play calls sometimes, or like instances where we go away from things, and I just really question that stuff. And I felt like that happened again yesterday. And
here it is. First drive of the second half, 3rd and 2 at the 48. Shotgun deep pass to Jefferson. I think he threw it out of bounds. But like it was second and 2, and shotgun deep pass to Jefferson. No good. 3rd and 2, deep pass to Jefferson. No connection there. And then Ryan Wright punted it. So on 4th down.
Another thing that I question is, who's the one guy on our team yesterday, or like every time he touched the ball, he got yards? Like, why isn't Ty Chandler getting more touches?
Yeah.
I felt he had like 3 carries for 20-some yards yesterday or something like that. Like, I just feel like he
looks explosive. He passes the eye.
He hits the hole hard and he gets upfield in a hurry. And I feel like he's much more of a receiving threat than Madison is. And I just don't understand why we don't utilize guys like that more instead of checking down to a guy like Madison who doesn't, like, he lacks explosiveness. I'm not saying he's a bad running back, but there's just so many like little things that I question. And like I said, I'm not saying that Kevin O'Connell is a turd by any means, but I just feel like he probably cost us some games with his play calling.
Well,
go ahead.
I just think to that point, Tanner, he had 3 for 27. I look back to even last year, like there was a lot of hype around Madison when Madison had to start for Delvin. He always looked good, but like Madison hardly saw the field, I feel like, last year. And there's in a league that's going to running back by committee, where even Christian McCaffrey comes off the field quite a bit.
You ride your hot hand.
KOC doesn't sub the running backs that often at all in his year and a half now, and that's really surprising. I think that's a good point that you made there.
I'm really curious to see how Cam Akers is going to factor into this offense. Like, they didn't give up a lot for him, so there's not really much risk if you want to put him on the field or not. But I just hope that they utilize him more in the passing game.
Did you see what the conditions were on that pick, or on the picks?
Well, I think it was a swap, and if he meets,
he doesn't get 500 yards,
it's free, essentially.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a great deal.
The Rams wanted to get rid of him, apparently. So
I'm gonna steal my rant. I'm gonna piggyback on Tanner's because I was gonna go the exact same direction, but the short yardage is what I want to key in on. Like that, Tanner, you mentioned the 2nd and 2, 3rd and 2. Like, just What drives me nuts is in that situation, pick up the first down. But when it's 2nd and 1, we have no problem having Kirk sneak for a first down. I would rather have 2nd and 1 all day long and be able to do anything than, I don't know, that bothers me.
Yeah.
It's been a long day, Goose.
I like the short yardage shot every once in a while, but
the short yardage shot, yes, but then pick up the first down. Guys, it was 1st and goal at the 3 with 4:23 to go in the game. Now, there might have been way too much time left because the only way we really stopped the Chargers was when they decided to run it. But 4:23, 1st and goal at the 3. Madison gains 2 yards, and we're at the 1 yard line. Like, think about that now, knowing whatever, what all unfolded. And then they hand it to Madison in the backfield. He loses a yard. It's 3rd and 2. Short right to Jefferson, incomplete. 4th and 2, incomplete. And then penalties decline on a legal shift, so it wouldn't have counted anyway. But come on.
Yeah. Someone tweeted that the Vikings had 1st and goal on the 3, 1st and goal on the 3, and 1st and goal on the 6, and they came away with 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 points that we got was from the Madison fumble that came back in our favor. So there was a chance that we had all 3 of those and had 0 points. So yeah, situation was not good.
Let me ask you this. Last year when we were winning all these games, you remember the Packers, whatever he's called, Peter, whatever, was it big into like
Peter Butkowski?
Yes, that dude. So we can't have it both ways, right? We can't say, oh, last year they were really good, and the way they won or the stats don't matter. But then this year, if we are standing pat with that viewpoint, we can't then say, well, this year they're actually better. They're just getting unlucky, right?
Yeah.
So which is it? Like, are the Vikings I already know Tanner's answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are the Vikings, is this just what bad teams do? Because I've seen a lot of bad teams and bad offenses and things, and it doesn't look the same way that this team looks, right? Like, they usually can't move the ball, and it's just a dumpster fire. This team's actually kind of fun to watch. They just make it more difficult to watch them lose because the way they find to, like, if there was a script, Vikings are winning some awards this year for the way things are playing out. But is this just what bad teams do, or are they not a bad team? They just have to turn it around.
Yeah, I still think they're just a good football team that's just not executing. Like, I feel like we're trying to get cute, or I actually don't know. I actually, like, when it comes to like the play calling thing, I just don't, I don't understand. Like when you have a 2nd and 1 situation, like we've talked about, like, I just don't, why would you throw deep twice? Like, what are you doing? Why are we even running routes that far? Just get the first down and reset, and you can relook at your playbook again. Like, I just don't.
Okay. So just remember this conversation. The next time it's 2nd and 1 and they have Kirk run up the middle, it's like,
or the next time it's 2nd and 1 play action, you hit a deep bomb to Jordan
that's
Addison.
what I want
It's
to
going to
see.
be like, what are we doing?
No, I want to see that. I don't want to pick up on 2nd down, Tanner. I'm cool with throwing it down the field.
Yeah.
On 3rd down, pick it up.
Yeah.
2nd and 1.
Yes.
That's
Put yourself in a position to
This is an
reset
argument
downs.
I love to have. If you could pick any situation in football,
I mean, if it's like 2nd and 7, if it's like 2nd and 7,
No.
anything above like 2nd and 5, I'm like, all right, we can throw the rock here.
No,
but when it's
follow
short,
me here. Follow
hit your
me.
first
I want to
down.
hit this home for the 6 people that may be still watching. If you could have one situation in football, do you want 1st and 10 or 2nd and 1?
2nd and 1.
Thank you, Goose. Tanner's struggling here.
Where's my 1st and 10 at?
Doesn't matter.
There's
50-yard line. You could be at the 50-yard line at 1st and 10.
There's
or
no
49
scenario
at
where
2nd
you
and
should
1.
like. I guess 1st and 10 on the 10 would maybe say give me more field, but Tanner, you're overthinking this.
It's like saying, well, you can easily get 9 yards on 2nd down, so give me 1st and 10. No, 2nd and 1. You can start every drive at 2nd and 1. Money.
I'm going to put the difference back to your original question. The difference between the team last year and this team. there's still some problems. Like Tanner said, there was problems last year and they got covered up with 13 wins. But even though I think they were the right roster moves to make, there's something to be said about losing Eric Hendricks and Patrick Peterson and Delvin Cook and some veteran leadership who's more vocal. The guys that we kept, I think, are known to be more quiet leaders. The Harrison Smiths of the world has self-proclaimed, like, I think for a couple of years he didn't really want to be a captain. He just likes to play and not really talk. Daniil, I think, is kind of a quiet guy. Brian O'Neill seems like he might be a little bit more vocal, but I think we lost some key veterans who, it's one thing if the coaches harp all day on whatever they want to harp. If it comes from the players, it means a little bit more. And I'm hoping as the season progresses, JJ takes on more of that role. You could tell he's about as competitive as any player in the NFL. So I think players are going to start holding each other accountable, and it needs to happen. And I think what we see in the first 3 weeks is maybe missing some of those veterans that have been around for the past Pat Pete a few years. But besides that, Eric Hendricks and some of these guys that have been around a long time.
All right, we got to end on some positivity. If you're watching, give us some comments on Rants and Raves. Tanner, I'm going to let you start. Give us a rave, something that you are optimistic about, played well yesterday, encouraged on, anything that'll get us to tune in on Sunday at noon to wish for a win and a turn to a season here.
I just love to watch Ivan Pace play football.
Ivan Pace, okay.
He's just it looks like a little bowling ball out there, and he just, with this little cowboy collar, he's like 5'10". And I actually remember a scenario, I think it was in the third quarter, where it felt like Justin Herbert was in a shotgun formation, and he like stepped up to like tell his lineman, like, somebody block this dude. Like, he was pointing at him, because it felt like Pace is constantly just getting through. Like, he is just like a missile. Like, when he knows where the ball is at, like, he's getting to it fast and quick. And like, I think that was such a good pickup for Kwesi to save any potential disaster from this draft class.
Yeah, imagine if they didn't have him.
He is fun to watch. I hope he's here for a long time.
Goose, give us a rave.
My rave, I think, has to go back to the fact that, like, for the most part this season, it still seems like we're beating ourselves, which isn't an excuse to be like, oh, well, we're better than last year, but it feels more correctable than when you're just a bad team. And I said at the beginning of the year, I didn't think it would look like this, but I said quite a bit at the beginning of the season that I think this was going to be Kirk's best season with everything that he had going. And it looks like it is. And if we can start winning some games and Kirk can still, be the quarterback that he's been, if Reisner can plug in, if Bradbury can come back and we give him an extra half second in the backfield, I think it could be a really fun team. We've been kind of a run first team for a long time under Zimmer, and I wouldn't mind watching the Vikings turn the season around under an air raid where we're just spreading defenses out and carving them up. So that's my rave / hope for optimism for the rest of the season.
I think about when we predicted the schedule, I feel like we probably all had them at 1-2, maybe 2-1. But if you could say 1-2 is probably somewhat expected, then we're talking about one game, the first one of the year, that really didn't fall the way that it probably should have.
Yeah.
You also have a 17-game season versus 16. So the stats that you hear about the last, 10, 20 years of teams that started 0-3, I think 4 made the playoffs out of like 158, I want to say. Probably is something that's a little bit skewed now with 17-game season. NFC is wide open, giving you lots of reasons to be optimistic, guys. Like I said, we've got guys leading stat categories in passing yards, receiving yards, second in sacks. There's a lot there. I think Flores, as the defense comes together, probably gets a little bit stronger, maybe Davenport coming back. But I'm going to go very, very basic. What do you don't talk to a pitcher if they're throwing a no-hitter, right? You don't ever talk to them about it. You don't talk about, I haven't gotten pulled over for speeding in a while, because then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You get a speeding ticket. So I shouldn't even say this out loud, but we have not spoken the words Greg Joseph since the season began. And he's tacked on every attempt we've expected him to make. So we should be optimistic about that, guys.
You weren't supposed to talk about that, Brent.
I just did. So if there's two things we can take away from this, Greg Joseph will miss a field goal. And the next time you guys see us QB sneak on 2nd and 1, just think of me, because I'm going crazy watching that happen. So anything to close us out, guys?
Yeah, I just say it's a long season, and we're 3 games in. We haven't played a divisional game yet. You look at the best teams in the NFC right now: San Francisco, Philadelphia are undefeated. Dallas looked like the best team, and they went to Arizona and got beat by a very inferior Cardinals team yesterday. So this is a any given Sunday type thing, and I feel like once the Vikings, if they can get healthy and put their full units on the field with Davenport, Cam Akers, potentially Reisner, I think that we're going to be back in the thick of things very soon. Again, we just got to right the ship against Carolina.
Goose, anything to close us out?
Couldn't have said it much better than that. I'd just like to leave with thinking about Tanner, talking about our pass rush, and DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones, and whoever that other guy is over there. So that was one of my better laughs in our episodes.
Sometimes we need a little positivity
Carter?
after a long weekend and a long Monday. So, guys, it's been good. If you're still watching, you've not yet subscribed, go ahead and do that. Leave us a comment, your rants, raves, and what your polarizing thoughts on 2nd and 1 might be as well. Love to talk about that. We'll be back again to preview the 0-3 versus 0-3 Panthers in the Adam Thielen revenge game. Guys, if we lose to the Panthers and Adam Thielen makes the game-winning touchdown, then I think it's time to just put a bow on the season. But until that happens, we're going to keep the positivity. We'll be back again here later this week. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk soon.